Hello, wrestling fans, boxing fans, and everybody out there. It's me, Bride Time, wrestling and boxing forever. Now, we got some things to cover. Um, we're gonna start with the sport of boxing. Um, Te- Teofimo Lopez lost his undisputed light heavyweight championship to a guy named George Kambosos Jr. in a back and forth bloodbath of a kind of matchup. It was a hell of a fight. Both guys bought it. It was a hell of a fight for purist boxing fans, and it was a great night for boxing. Teofimo Lopez losing the title. Some people say his father shouldn't be his trainer anymore after that, but we'll see what happens. Shout out to Bruce Bain. He's one of my favorite guys to listen to on YouTube. Him, Showbiz the Adult, Kurt DeVille, Rummy's Corner, and Boxing Squared. Those are guys that I listen to. Bruce Bain did like I said, I'm a fan of Bruce Bain. I like his stuff. He said that he feels that Terence Crawford is the best pound for pound fighter in the world. Well, that's always going to be up for debate because there's always going to be somebody with a difference of opinion for one reason or another. But after his performance against Shawn Porter, his performance in that matchup with Shawn Porter, now, it was an A+ effort, A+ game plan, A+ execution. Terence Bud Crawford was just flat out better than Shawn Porter that night. Shawn Porter had no answers, had no answer for anything that he had brought to the table. None. Shawn Porter's a hell of a fighter. I think Shawn Porter will not retire from the sport of boxing. I just think that he's hurt more than anything with the fact that his father had to step in and stop the fight. I think that's what did it. I think Shawn Porter's pride is hurt more than anything. So I don't think he'll retire because he was talking about a rematch. And he's willing to rematch. But my point is, with that kind of performance that Terence Bud Crawford put on, with that kind of performance and that kind of execution of the game plan, A+ down the line. He did everything he was supposed to do. He got the win. And no, I don't believe that fight was fixed at all. I think Terence Bud Crawford was just flat out better than Shawn Porter that night. Now, don't get it twisted. I'm not trashing Shawn Porter. Shawn Porter is a hell of a fighter. But Terence Bud Crawford was just flat out better than he was that night. And the fact that his father had to step in to stop the fight, that says it all. And another thing that kind of worked the nerves of boxing people on YouTube, like a Kurt DeVille and a Bruce Bain and all them. Keith one-time Thurman. The last time he was in a boxing ring, the last 2 times that I could remember, was a unification bout with Danny Garcia in which he lost. The very last time I saw him was the Pacquiao fight, which he lost. Now, he's been away from the sport of boxing for more than a year and a half. More than a year and a half. So, and now he's just calling out names. And he's asking for a very heavy price tag to fight Terence Crawford. A lot of fans and boxing analysts are like, how in the world are you asking to fight Terence Crawford for X amount of dollars? I don't know the specific amount that was asked for, but how in the world are you throwing your name into a sweepstakes? And this is my opinion. How in the world are you throwing your name in a sweepstakes to fight Terence Crawford when you haven't been active for a year and a half, or more than a year and a half? I'm a fan of Keith one-time Thurman. I am a fan. But I'm also a realist, you know? Activity is your friend. The more active you are, the more times you're in the ring, the more times you're seen on television, the more active you are, the better. Ask any old-time fighter, any old-time trainer or promoter. You gotta be active. You gotta be active. You gotta be active. You gotta fight at least 2 or 3 times a year. But you're not just gonna come out of nowhere after losing the Pacquiao. Like I said, I like Keith one-time Thurman. I am a fan. I'm a fan of the sport of boxing, period. And I do believe that that fight will be a good fight. Keith one-time Thurman and Bud Crawford. I do believe it'll be a great fight. But a lot of people are like, some people are like, how in the world are you just calling out names, especially somebody like Bud Crawford, when you haven't been active since the Pacquiao fight? You just kind of disappeared on people. In activity, you could talk to Mike Tyson, Larry Holmes, and Roy Jones Jr., all these old school, down in the dirt boxing guys they're old school to the hilt. They'll fight everybody and anybody at any time. They'll tell you that activity is your friend. The more active you are, the better. If the fight happens, all well and good. All well and good. I like Keith Thurman, but I gotta go with Terence Bud Crawford. Why? Because that man is That man is just on a level right now. That man is just on fire. He's on a level right now that's untouchable. Untouchable. He's an old school down in the dirt fighter, willing to fight anybody, regardless of where it's at. So shout out to Terence Bud Crawford. I'm becoming a fan. I am. I like to see Danny Garcia back in there. I like to see more of Tony Harrison. Gary Russell Jr., I'm a fan of Gary Russell Jr. But he's got to be more active, man. Fighting once a year. He's got to step up his, he's got to fight more. That's all there is to it. Shout out to everybody who puts on gloves. Shout out to everybody who steps in the wrestling ring, because you guys are putting your bodies and your safety on the line to entertain fans and boxing analysts alike. So, shout out to Gambosis for getting that win over Teofimo Lopez. Shout out to Bud Crawford, man. He's on his way. Now, let's talk some wrestling. Now, let's start it out with this. The NWA is getting ready for Hard Times 2. They're going back to Atlanta at the PBG Studios. And it's going to be a hell of a card. Mike Knox returns to wrestling. Mike Knox is a former WWE talent. The WWE wanted him to return. He decided not to return to WWE. But he returns to the NWA. The two-night event that was on YouTube by the NWA, By Any Means Necessary, that's when Mike Knox made his debut and attacked Trevor Murdoch in a cage. And Mike Knox made it personal when he put his hands on Trevor Murdoch's son. It's going to be a hell of a fight. It's going to be a knockdown, drag-out, slobber knocker. If I could steal a word from Jim Ross, it's going to be a slobber knocker. Because you're not going to put your hands on a man's son. I don't care what that man does for a living, to do that man's child harm, and he's not going to respond to it in some form or fashion. Trevor Murdoch's looking for a fight, and you better be ready. Now, let's move on. Camille, the Brick House. Very talented lady. Very talented lady. She's getting ready to wrestle Melina for the Women's Championship. And speaking of the Women's Championship, the tag team titles are on the line too. It's called the Hex. That's Allison Kay and Marty Bell, the Hex. They're going to be defending their women's tag team belts in a three-way dance. Shouts out to all the lady wrestlers that are out there. And Zion, the masked man, who cashed in his championship opportunity after that champion series. He's coming after Titus. Now, usually there's a 6-minute and 5-second time limit on all television title matchups. And there is the Lucky 7 rule, which if the television champion successfully holds on to the TV title for 7 defenses, he'll be in line to be a contender for the world's heavyweight championship. So Zion, the masked man, is getting ready. He says he's going to be taking that TV title off of Titus. So we'll see what happens there. La Rebellion defending their tag team titles against the End. It's going to be a heck of a matchup. Now, folks, I said this in my last video. It was a great video. Check it out. The NWA is bringing back the Junior Heavyweight Championship, and I am so excited for it. I can't wait for it. The fans are going to love it. Technical wrestling, high flying. The Junior Heavyweight division always had a little bit of everything in it. Technical wrestlers, high flyers, brawlers, guys that can do it all in there. The Junior Heavyweight division is a great division. They're having a gauntlet. The winner of the gauntlet goes straight to the finals of a tournament they're going to have. The people in it that I know of: Luke Hawks, father and son, Luke and BJ Hawks. Homicide is in it. Let's see who else. Rip Titus and Austin Aries, they're going to be wrestling each other in the NWA qualifier in the tournament. So it's going to be great, man. I can't wait for that NWA Junior Heavyweight Championship. I made a video on it. I spoke on the importance of that championship, and thank you, NWA, for recognizing me, the fans, and that belt, and the respect that comes with it. They're having a thing for Jazz, who recently retired from in-ring competition. So it's going to be Hard Times 2 is going to be a hell of a card. A hell of a card. The pregame show is going to be great too. Also, what's going to happen at Hard Times 2? The Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions, Matt Taven and Mike Bennett, are going to defend the titles against J.R. Kratos and Aaron Stevens. And that's going to be for the Ring of Honor Tag Team titles. So, Ring of Honor is taking a hiatus after Final Battle to do some reconstruction of their company, and when they come back, they're going to run it more like an independent. Like there's not going to be contracts. Well, there'll be contracts, but not for long term and things like that, I guess. But Hard Times is this Saturday, folks. This Saturday, December 4th. And let's move on to some other news. Big Swole decided not to renew her Ring of Honor, All Elite Wrestling contract. She decided not to renew it. She decided to move on. It was a mutual agreement. Everything is on good terms with them, so she can come back if she wants to. Maybe she has some outside interest other than professional wrestling. Maybe she's looking to go to the WWE to be with her husband, Cedric Alexander. Kudos to her for the work that she's done in All Elite Wrestling. Kudos to her for what she's done in All Elite Wrestling. And speaking of Major League Wrestling, that's why I was constantly saying it, because I was thinking about it. Speaking of Major League Wrestling, they now have an open door policy that will allow former WWE, Impact Wrestling, it will allow talent from other companies or other countries or whatever to come in to Major League Wrestling. And Ho Ho Lum, a Chinese professional wrestler, is coming to Major League Wrestling. He's coming to Major League Wrestling. For those of you who are not familiar with Ho Ho Lum, he was a part of the Cruiserweight Classic. The Cruiserweight Classic that was won by T.J. Perkins. But in that tournament, it was there was a long list of talent. Ho Ho Lum was one of them. Tommaso Ciampa. There was a guy named Damac, and Gentleman Jack Gallagher. Tajiri was in it. One of the light heavyweight, cruiserweight, junior heavyweight, light heavyweight pioneers. Rich Swann was in it. Cedric Alexander was in it. Mustafa Ali was in it. Ariane Daivari was in that. And speaking of Ariane Daivari, he'll be in that gauntlet for that junior heavyweight title tournament qualifier. He'll be in the gauntlet for it. People, I hope everybody enjoyed the holiday season. I hope everybody enjoyed Thanksgiving. I hope you guys have a great Christmas. And stay safe. Stay safe, strong, and healthy. And have a great Christmas. Hope you enjoyed your Thanksgiving. Wrestling and boxing forever. Ride time. Out.